Hey y'all, Moses here. A few months ago, I made a video covering anxiety and mental performance in PUBG. It was fairly well received, and as the game has continued to grow, I believe that the issue about in-game performance for new players dealing with nerves and fear has grown too. I said in that video that I'm not a mental health professional, or even really any other kind of professional. Luckily, I had the chance to meet a professional working in the mental performance field. His name is Dan Himmelstein.
Yeah, my name's Dan Himmelstein, founder and brain coach, performance coach, go by a couple different titles at Premier Esports Academy. I've worked with professional Overwatch players, professional CSGO players, semi-pro CSGO players, kind of all around the board, mostly in the FPS range. I've also published research on League of Legends, and really my whole game is to make you better mentally and help you improve efficiently and perform consistently in any given environment, whether you're playing the best players in the world in your game or whether you're playing your friends.
I spoke to Dan about how in some situations players will get so concerned about what they should be doing or what could happen to them that they stop making the right decisions. Or in some cases stop making any decisions at all and they freeze up. This can make for a frustrating experience, so I asked him what players can do to move past those types of issues and to keep focused on the game.
So the first thing I'll talk about here is that's totally normal. Even the most novice players, they don't really start to experience really debilitating anxiety until that late game. The first 20 minutes of that game is, looting, getting some low risk kills, things like that. And then all of a sudden you're in the top 10, top 15, and you're like, whoa, I actually have a shot at winning this one. Like, I could actually win this one. I better not blow this shot. I better not blow this opportunity. This could be my chance at chicken dinner. And once you start going through those thought processes, the perceived risk of dying goes way up. So one of the things that really happens in the last 10 circles is hyper focus, and you start to tense up a little bit, and breathing gets really short and really frequent. Now that's not promoting a lot of oxygen to the brain, so that's going to cause some problems in decision making. So one of the first things I have players do is settle into their breathing cadence, have a good rhythm, and just kind of maintain that. Maintain that throughout your entire game. Practice outside of the game, things like that. That way, it's a comfortable breathing cadence to you. It's not something that's irregular. And that's going to help control your heart rate. It's going to help control the tense kind of decision making because you're getting a lot of oxygen to the brain. You're getting an optimal amount of oxygen to the brain. So that's really one of the first things.
In the last video, we talked about how to anticipate how the game would play out and how to put yourself in the mindset that you could be killed at any time. If you resolve the fact that this isn't the last game you'll ever play and try to focus on what's happening in front of you, it will be easier to move through the games and into the last circles. Dan had a similar point.
Anticipate. Decide when you enter the game, is this going to be a game that you get 30 kills and call it a day, or is this going to be a game that you win? Because as you know, as everyone who's played PUBG knows, that's two very different mindsets. So If you're coming into this game to win, anticipate being in that last circle and have a plan for what you're going to do when you get there.
Regardless of how much planning, anticipation, or correct decisions you might make, we are playing a game that can be merciless with circle luck or just getting surprised by a camping or unknown enemy. This can lead to some major frustration in public games and is especially rage-inducing when playing competitively in a tournament where prizes might be involved. Dealing with that frustration, especially in a team environment, can be critical to performance.
Really just having a good mindset going into it, understanding like this isn't your last game, you're going to have another shot, you're going to have another opportunity at this, especially in those like higher risk tournaments and things like that when we're really playing for cash prizes, and that could be extremely frustrating. Understanding that that's part of the game. Part of the game is you might drop 3 times and get past the first area, 1 out of those 3 times. Understanding that there are pieces of that part that can be improved upon. Taking a look at those types of games that are really pushing you over the edge and getting you super frustrated, taking a look at them and saying, okay, well, what can I still gain from this game? Like, how in some sort of way can I make this not a waste? You have to take something from that game and you have to get better with it. It kind of comes back to that whole mindset, just going into it, knowing what you want out of that game. Sometimes it is best to just take a step back. And that can be kind of tough with like really restricted practice regimens and things like that. But it's important to know your limits. Know when you're gonna not play any better because your day or your training session you just rage too hard and you're at your cap. So knowing those limits, and then still getting something out of them. So that way, when you look back at that game, it's not going to be a game I was super mad about because I learned something from it. I was able to take something away from it.
Now that PUBG has been out for nearly a year, the player base is beginning to mature, and in the competitive scene, teams and players are all vying to put the best possible 4 players out in competition. Organizations are picking up PUBG rosters, and when money is on the line, things can get tense. When it comes to climbing the ladder and trying to get signed to a professional organization, it's not just the game-to-game stuff that makes one team better than the rest. I asked Dan what factors go into making a high-performing squad.
That can make or break a team is internal chemistry. We've all seen it before. We've seen one toxic player ruin an entire organization. So staying away from that as best as possible, is going to be the goal here. So really that comes with setting up a strong foundation, a strong culture up front that says, look, if we make a mistake, that's okay. We need to be able to move forward and learn from that mistake. And that's not going to, we're not going to cut you because you made one mistake. And that needs to be at the organizational level. So setting up that culture of where we can communicate mistakes, where we can all help each other grow, is going to really help with that internal chemistry. Now, I don't always advocate for players to be best friends. Sometimes that gets in the way. But trusting your teammates, trusting in-game, knowing where they're going to be, knowing that they have your back, that's going to really help the most with internal chemistry. If you can trust that in-game, that everyone's going to do their job, everyone's going to play their part, that's going to really help the most with internal chemistry. And then setting up that feedback channel that, hey, I did this wrong, how do you think I could do this better? Sometimes it is we got an unlucky circle, we should have gotten out of there quicker, we just didn't have the gear. A lot goes into it, and you nailed it before. Control the controllables. Don't get angry at something you can't control.
On the topic of toxicity, which is a term that gets thrown around a lot in the competitive scene and in gaming in general, Dan and I talked about finding players that bring the right attitude to the game, be it in practice or in tournaments. Recognizing your own attitude and how it affects your teammates is an important part of chemistry and performance in a team environment.
Yeah, attitude's a choice. And I hate to say it, it's a choice. And if a person is consistently choosing the wrong attitude, if they're consistently choosing to get angry at certain things or to really pick apart like nitty-gritty micromanaging, then you're going to run into some problems. So making sure that your players are staying motivated, staying happy, that's going to be huge. Because so many teams want to quick and grab the best players here, the best players there, and throw those all on the table. And say, all right, awesome, we got a great squad right here. But that doesn't always set up for the best foundation. You have to really set up the culture up front when you first establish the team. You have to say, look, this is going to be our expectations for communication, whether we're going to hold a session a week and just have a feedback session and rap about, what we could all do better, what we all need to improve on. That's awesome.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I know that the mental side of the game in both casual and competitive play is one of the little discussed topics related to PUBG. Ultimately, the ability to perform on any level is rooted in a productive and clear mindset. Establish goals for yourself and practice some physical aspects like breathing to make yourself a better player. I'd like to thank Dan for taking the time out of his busy schedule to talk about this stuff, and I would recommend you check out his other articles and the description down below to find a link to Premier Esports Academy. If this video was helpful to you, hit the like button, and I'd also love to hear some of your thoughts about this topic or anything else related to PUBG and mental performance down in the comments section. So, until next time, I'll see you out there.